Welcome to Ask Gwen, everyone. Today with me I have Tori, and I'm going to let Miss Tori take it away and share her story, and then we'll see how it goes from there. So, welcome, Tori.
Oh, thanks so much, Lynn. Thanks for having me here. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm going to be a first time author soon. And so I am interested to pick your brain a little bit about your writing process as well. I'll ask you a little bit later. But I'm writing a book about, it's all about birth and babies, pregnancy, that whole world. But I talk a little bit more about the unpopular practices that people choose to do there. So you can think of things like, um, having birth at home, using cloth diapers, kind of that stuff where when I tell people, they think, "Oh, that sounds kinda weird," or "That sounds crazy, like, how does that work?" So, I'm trying to bridge that gap and help people understand that it's not crazy and it's not totally out there, and it's just another option for people. But besides the book, I'm a mom of 2. I also have worked with people with special needs for my whole adult life, starting when I was 16. That was my first job. I was a caregiver for someone with a brain injury, and from there, it just sparked, like, a huge passion for me. So that's a little bit about me right there.
And so, why are you writing this book? What is the catalyst that made you write the book in the first place?
Yeah, my mom and my sister kind of got the idea in my head one day because I've always been into these more sort of natural ways of doing things, or almost like a, you could say I'm a little bit of like a hippie when it comes to that kind of stuff. And they were talking to me about it. I had just had my daughter at home, and they mentioned that just the way that I explain it really helps them to understand because they were not very familiar with that kind of thing either. And they said, "You just have this way of explaining it so that, it doesn't sound as weird or as scary." And it just kind of put that little idea in my head. I thought maybe I could help other people too to see this. And it's definitely not to say that it's for everyone, but I just want people to not be afraid of it and to maybe consider it as an option. And maybe they'll still end up choosing like a hospital birth or some more conventional ways of doing things, and that's totally fine, but I just think people should have more options.
I do too, especially nowadays. Um, in the time we're recording this interview, it's October 18th, and
Mhm,
we're sitting in a world pandemic. And so I think not only do we need to buck the trend on the birthing industry, I think we also need to buck the trend on how we as a society see our children being raised. And we as a society, I grew up in the Catholic religion, and I'm slowly but surely going back. But
mhm,
the Catholic religion, for those of you that grew up in the Catholic religion, know exactly what I'm talking about. The Catholic religion is like a drill sergeant, quite frankly. It's like we do this, we do this, we do this. And for the longest time, my family was so into, and they still are, they're into the Catholic religion, that for the longest time they said to me, "You need to go to church. You need to go to church. You need to go to church." And we'll pay for people to literally take you to church. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work, because it's all about how we see the world. And when it comes to pregnancy, some people like home births, some people do not. Some
mhm,
people require a C section.
Mhm.
So I think we just need to meet people where they're at.
Yes, oh, I agree, I totally agree. I grew up with a religious family as well, and, yeah, I think part of that is being told exactly how to live your life, step A, B, and C, and this is, like, the only way, and, yeah, people need to branch out a little bit more and decide, like, what feels right for them, I think.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. People need, and especially in the time we're sitting in now, a world pandemic, people need to understand that um, being in such a by rote um, way of thinking, plans A, B, and C, is not going to work when we have a world pandemic going on.
Yes, it has changed things so dramatically in every way, right? And I've really noticed in as when it comes to home birth, I think it's getting more people looking at that right now because there's so many restrictions in the hospital now. And
Yeah.
there's been
Oh, yeah.
people who have said or been told like they can't have support people with them in the hospital, which I think is such a shame, like to not have your choice of who you'd like to be there with you.
Well, I can barely have my aides in my aides.
Oh yeah,
Now,
you have to like fight for it, right? And
in
yeah,
the
like
doctor's office, I can barely have my aides in the doctor's office, so I just tell my aides, "No, you're not coming in." So I don't have to fight for it. But
so you
so
have to
many
don't have to deal with
people
it.
are now looking at home births as a way of, um, as a way of it's not so scary because doulas are getting more and more popular now in a time of coronavirus, and do, everything is shifting.
Yes, it is, and I'm happy to see that actually, because from my experience, when people start shifting in that direction, they start they get more power. They start to feel like they have more control, and they're sort of like taking their power back. I think a lot of these women are, and so it's a great thing. It's they realize that they're strong women that they can accomplish like really hard things and having that support. I mean, doulas, I can't say enough good things about doulas. They make everything better. They're really helpful, and research has shown that just having a doula present at a birth, it does all kinds of wonderful things. People report having shorter labors, they use less medication, and these are scientifically, proven things. So there's no question that they're really valuable for people.
And so, because of everything that's going on medically, I would highly, highly recommend you guys look into either adoption, untraditional adoption, or look into having a home birth if you choose to go the child birth route because um, hospitals are scary places right now. And without, at least in the home, you could have that support.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's just so important. It's these are the 2 big things I've seen is the arena of birth, where women have been virtually forced to give birth alone, and death as well. People being forced to die alone because 'cause they're not allowed to have people with them, and I just think those 2 things are really unfortunate. It's just been a really horrible side effect of this pandemic. But I'm really happy to hear you talk about adoption because that's something else that I bring up in the book as well, because even though I'm a birth advocate and, I've got nothing against it, of course, I really wish more people would consider adoption for growing their family because there's just such a huge need there, and, it would solve so many problems.
There's such a huge need when it comes to the disabled population getting adopted.
You're so
Ay,
right on that.
ay, 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 don't get me started on that.
I
But
know. We could go
ay, ay,
deep into that. Yeah, that would
deep
be a
into
whole
that.
other
But that would be a whole nother podcast episode, and I'm dead serious
Mhm,
when I say that. But
mhm.
basically, you people, and I hate to say it, but I I hate to be like this, but you guys know I am a um advocate for all disabilities, all whether it be deaf, blind, bad back, whether it be cerebral palsy, especially cerebral palsy because I have it. And
Mhm.
so but cerebral palsy is a lack of oxygen injury at birth. And the idiot who, and I hate to call him an idiot, and his
It's
wife
okay.
knows it too, and the OBGYN who said to my mom, "Oh, you may have Braxton Hicks. Let's put you on bed rest." Luckily, my
Mhm,
mom's girlfriend who was who came over to the house, my house, said, no, that's not Braxton Hicks. That's preterm labor. You need to get to the hospital now. And the other OBGYN saved my life. And
mhm.
I no, it's the huge elephant in the room because of these OBGYNs saying that oh, it may be Braxton Hicks or it may be something else when it's preterm labor.
Yes.
So what are we doing?
Oh, your experience is not rare, honestly, when it comes to, what I've heard people call it is obstetrical violence. Um, it's the OBs are basically violating women with some of their practices and some of their advice, and it's not uncommon at all, unfortunately, and it all stems from not believing mothers and believing women. They know better than anyone. They can feel something's wrong, something's up. I feel like this is labor starting or something, right? And to have someone just deny your experience and say no, and they're the authority, so you always feel like, oh, they must know better than me. And so
My
I think that's something that's changing.
mom's OBGYN had cancer too. So that brain
Oh.
cancer. So why he wasn't retired, I don't know. But
Mm.
I'm like, hello?
I know, right?
Hello?
uh,
You
well,
need to think straight. And
yes.
luckily, my mom's girlfriend saved my life. And she was an LBGYN. She just said, no, that's not preterm labor. And so you, as women, need to be a patient advocate for yourselves if you're going the hospital OBGYN route or the home birth route. Actually, it's the OBGYN route anyway with the home birth or the hospital route. But us as women need to be patient advocates on all fronts because with my mother's experience, they tried to kill me coming right out of the womb.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's shocking.
And so, yeah. And so you guys need to be patient advocates for yourself. And I know it's tricky because I know when we're recording this, oh, the OBGYN will say, oh, you can't bring another individual like grandma into the office. Oh, you can't bring another individual like your husband into the office. Oh,
Mhm.
oh, oh. Well, um, and you can't, and there are apps, and I'm going. to look one up because I have it on my phone that's actually Dox's approved. And let me see if I can find it. Um, uh, this app is called Abridge, you guys. And this app is actually Dox's office approved. And I'm going to have my assistant stick it in the show notes of this episode because no, Abridge doesn't sponsor this podcast by any means, but in these wonky times, you can at least record what the doctor is saying and then share it with whoever it needs to be shared with.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Really important.
Yeah, because women are getting the fuzzy end of lollipop more times than not.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's so important for women to start educating themselves on their options, like, before they ever decide to have a baby, because that way when you go in, you can start to pick up if this doesn't seem right, or what you when you want to advocate for yourself, you actually have to know what your options are, because sometimes a doctor is just gonna tell you, "Oh, we have to do this now," and you're not gonna really know in the moment, "Oh, do I have other options here? Can I ask him or her to wait on that or do something different, give me an alternative?" Like, you need to know ahead of time, or else you're always gonna get put on whatever the default is of the practice.
Yeah, and I know these practices are trying to meet their medical standards, but still, we are not
Mhm.
doing medical malpractice here, and we are not. We are just being educated as women.
Mhm. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's not about, it's not about not appreciating all the education and things that the OBGYNs go through in their experience, and I think, like, there's a lot that the medical community has to offer. It's just that, like you say, we still need to advocate for ourselves, and it's it's gonna be different for everyone where your comfort level is, and, what's going on in your own experience. It's all gonna be a little bit unique, and you have to be able to decide for yourself, like, what kind of care you want and what works for you.
Yes. And so I have a question for you. What
Mhm.
is your favorite book?
Oh, I'm glad you asked me that, because one pops right into my mind, and I've bought it for people as gifts many times. It's called The Book of Awesome. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Book?
It's,
Awesome.
yeah, The Book of Awesome, and so it's by Neil Pasricha. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name exactly right, but it's not a novel or anything. It's one of those books that it's so easy to just flip through, and you can go to any page, and he just writes about things that sort of bring you joy, and it can be the most random things, but every time I flip to a page, I'm just like, "Oh, yes, that's so good." So, for example, it's just like, like the smell of cookies baking in the oven, and he takes all these little experiences that are so universal, and you're always like, "Oh, yeah, that's the best." So it's just like a real, like, easy read, and it just kinda makes you smile when you read those kind of things. So that would be up there on my favorites for sure.
And if your BFF had to write a book about you, what would the title be?
Yes, that's a great question. I really like that question, and I put a little thought into it, and what I came up with was it would be braver than you know, or you are braver than you know. And for me, that would just be because I feel like my journey through life up to where I am now, I wouldn't have called myself brave in the past. I wouldn't use that word for myself. And it's only recently that I've kind of discovered that even though I'm not always, the loudest speaking person and, I come across like a little shy at times, I'm still using my voice to get my message out there. And I feel like that's a really brave thing. And so it's something that I've really developed and something that I'm proud to be able to say now that I do feel like I'm braver than I ever thought I could be.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
Braver,
thanks.
braver than you know. I love that title. And as we wrap this interview up, ask ask away. I know you have questions for me, so
I
ask away.
do. Okay, yes. My first question, if I could ask a couple quick ones, if that's all right. The first one is I'd just like to know what your process was when you were writing your book, because I know for me it was a bit of a challenge to, it's a big project and it took me through all these emotions and things, and I wondered how that was for you.
Well, since the original book, I have written 11 books, and I'm working on my 12th and
Wow.
17th with a publisher, and I will be working on my 12th and 13th, and I gave myself a year to write the original book because I didn't know how to write the book, obviously, but I
Mhm.
knew what the concept was. And so I gave myself a year, and then I used speech dictation. For those of you that don't know, I use speech dictation day in, day out, and I'm on Mac. And so, for those of you that don't know, I actually have a book on how to write books using speech dictation.
Oh, I didn't know that, but that's great. That's fantastic because you have that experience.
And yeah, and so I am really, really honored that speech dictation has allowed me to do this.
That's so great. I'm so glad that there's tools out there, for helping people get their message out. That's so wonderful. That's great, and then to set a timeline too, I think that's really smart of you, because
Yeah,
I think a lot of people can sort of get a little lost in it, but when
yeah,
you've kind of got that deadline and that idea in your head, you can hold yourself to that. That's
yeah.
great. My second question for you, I wanted to know, what you thought your mom did so well in raising you, because I know you speak very highly of her, and so especially as a mom with a child with complex needs, what kind of characteristics and behaviors did you think was so great that, that she embodied?
She did not, one, she did not believe in the special ed, let's put Win in a special ed classroom. And I apologize for the asthmatic coughing attack, because I,
Don't worry. That's
I
fine,
was
don't worry.
um, raised as if I had no disability because I was lucky enough to go, and I say lucky enough to go to a private school. So I didn't know what in the world a special ed classroom or what an individualized I education plan IEP was until I was in high school. I did not know that. And
Mm,
now, and she actually told me, I didn't even ask her. She said, "Well, I wish I sent you to private school and to public school in the 5th grade when so many of your friends were transferring over, and then I would have followed hot pursuit had I known about the benefits of the public school." but as far as a special ed situation. But all in all, I didn't know that I had a disability until I was in seventh grade. So
Mhm.
that's one of the things she taught me. And she taught me never ever to give up, never ever to give a flying rat's ass as to what's going on, and
Mhm.
you know, to be a rebel welder. And people that um, know me personally and know me long enough on this podcast, over 10 years now, um, know that I'm a little bit of a rebel elder. When I get pushed, oh boy, you hear about it.
Yeah, watch out, right?
Yeah, watch out, here I come.
Oh, and that's so great. I think your mom really fostered that in you, right? To not take
Yeah,
any crap from anybody.
no,
And that's awesome. And then I like the quote you said that she described other people as, fear is their disability when they had a problem with you or with
it
people who might look like
it
you, and
is
I thought that was
yeah,
great.
it is filled in the unknown. That
Yes.
quote was its filled the unknown, and I still believe that. I mean, it's filled the unknown. I'm going through a small aid transfer right now, and the first thing, I wasn't in the room when my new aide said this, but the first thing, I guess they were standing in my own driveway, and the first thing the aide says is, "I hope Win likes me." I'm like, "Oh boy." You know, and then go again, I'm like, "You're the one that said yes to a job interview." And oh boy, I have a lot of teaching to do.
Right.
And I'm like, "Oh boy, I hope Win likes me." And when my stepmom told me that, I'm like, "Oh boy, I'll just put my teacher's hat on and teach."
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, it does fall into your hands sometimes, right, to teach other people, but I'm glad you're taking that on.
Yeah, no, no, I've taken that on since I was 14 years old. Now more than ever because I lost my mom. I also lost my dad in 2019.
Oh, sorry to hear.
That's okay, but
Mhm.
I am working on a book, on him too, and it's interesting. It's interesting. It's gonna be a completely different book than I did for the one for my mom, but and myself, but it's gonna be a completely different book, and it's taking a little bit longer than I would like because everything keeps getting in my way.
Yeah, sometimes that happens, right? It seems like
Yeah,
everything just kinda
yeah,
comes down at once. Well,
yes.
keep at it. I'm sure it's gonna be great, and yeah, it'll just be filled with more unique perspectives just because you have that different relationship with
Well,
your dad.
let's let's hope. And I was daddy's little girl. I mean,
Oh.
I no, the day he died at 8:30 a.m. I had a slash friend staying with me because my stepmom and stepsister were still in Denver and they weren't even home the day he died. And
Mhm.
I woke up. My phone went off at 4 a.m. I didn't even pick up the phone. My stepsister, and I'll never forget it. She calls me, and said, "Yes, what do you want?" And she goes, "I didn't mean to call you. I Beth dialed you." And I said, "Well, thank you very much, but I knew there was something wrong." And so
Mhm.
by the time 8:30 rolled around, I started screaming at my aide. My aide is literally standing in the doorway. I start screaming, I need to find my dad. I need to find my dad. I need to find out what happened to my dad. I need to
Yeah,
find
wow.
out. Yeah. And so by 9 a.m., he got killed by nursing home abuse. And
Wow.
yeah, he got killed by nursing home abuse. He died of organ failure. He went into cardiac arrest. They couldn't bring him back, but he died of nursing home abuse.
Wow. And unfortunately, that isn't always the most uncommon story either, and so I'm so
Now,
glad that you're doing this writing
yeah,
and gonna share on
and
that because it needs to come out.
well, his book is going to be more novel, but
Mm,
I
okay.
because I feel like until we get a closed case on this, I can't talk about it. I can
Mhm.
I talk about it briefly, but that's the way he died. And he was so smart in saying that if you don't get me out of here, they're gonna let me die.
Oh,
He
that's
said
awful.
that. He said that. Not
Mhm.
me, not my stepmom. He said that. The person that got diagnosed with lung cancer who's on death's door. And
Yeah.
then later we find later the the cancer people call us, and the medical term escapes me right now. And but they call us and say not the they call us and say you do realize it was stage 4. You do realize it. And we were like, no, we didn't realize that. And
Mm.
so, yeah. And so,
That's suspicious.
yeah, that's really suspicious. Well, partially because he wasn't doing anything about it. That's why it turned into stage 4 now. And
Mm.
so, yeah. So, my point being is we now all need to be patient advocates. We
Yeah.
all need to be patient advocates.
Yeah, and that just says it all right there. It goes across so many different places, right, in our lives, like from birth right up to death, and yeah, we're lifelong patients, so we do need to advocate for ourselves. You're so right on that. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing, like, your
I
story, and
know.
I love how open and transparent you are about
I
everything. It
am
makes it
open
so
and
nice to talk to you.
I am open and transparent, and that's one of the my mother was a little bit more private than I was, and I'm realizing that my stepmom is a little bit more private than I am, but my my stepmom on the other hand, she well, I won't say this publicly, but she she's not like me. She's like the most she will bite her tongue until you
Oh, yes.
push her, whereas I will raise a ruckus as as I see fit. I will raise a ruckus when I see fit.
Yeah, well, that's
And
great.
she's she's like, okay, when I'm raising a little bit of a rebel over on that. And I'm like, yes, you are. And they'll deal with it because
Yeah.
this is my personality and am I have Capricorn in me, although I was born a Cancer. Cancer is my astrological sign, although I have Capricorn in me. And Capricorn is stubborn. And so, and Cancer will be loyal to the 10th degree. And it's like, oh, and Leos are strong and they have no filter. She's a Leo, and so is my stepsister. But she will speak her mind, but she will also bite her tongue. And but at the same time, I will literally, I will literally bite people's heads off if they don't respect me. My big thing is acts of service, and my big thing is you are now raising a child with a disability, and my big thing is acts of service, and I don't care who's doing it. I don't care whether it's me doing it towards someone or someone doing it towards me.
Yeah. Well, you're unapologetic for sure, and I love that.
Well,
I really love that.
unapologetic. So, Tori, where can people find you, and where can people get a hold of you if they
Yeah.
choose to do so?
Oh, thanks for asking. I've got a website where you can read my blog. It's readytounpop.com. And then you can find me on Facebook and Instagram as well under that name, Ready to Unpop. So
Thank you.
Unpop, or I was just going to mention, Unpop is just a play on the unpopular side of
Yeah.
pregnancy and birth. Yeah.
Unpop. Okay. Ready to unpop, you guys. Ready to unpop. And Tori is on Facebook. And if you guys want to follow me to get her information, that's great. But we'll have more of Tori's information in the show notes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, thank you. Thanks to you guys. Bye, you guys.